Hello, and welcome to Horrify, the only channel on YouTube that discusses the topic of horror, both factual and fictional, apart from all the other channels, obviously. So, today we are going to be horrifying ourselves by talking about The Rats, James Herbert's classic The Rats. Okay, now this is going to be a tough one, so I'm going to need to put my collar up for this one. Okay, right, collar's up, we're ready to go. So, The Rats. This was James Herbert's, this was James Herbert's debut novel. He wrote it in 1974, and it's the book that really got his career going. It was actually, it was very, very successful. It was a bestseller, a bit controversial at the time because it's so gruesome. It's a pretty gory kind of book. James Herbert is a classic. He's considered one of the classic British horror authors, certainly of the last several decades. He made a great contribution to British horror, and he sadly passed away in 2013. So, as I say, the book was written in 1974, and so it's very much a book of its time. That means that some of the characters may express attitudes and opinions towards ethnic minorities or towards particular sexual groups, which might not be considered to be quite politically correct today. But it's interesting. It's interesting. That's an interesting aspect of the book. It shows how people thought in those days and the kind of terminology that was acceptable. That's no slur on the author. That's not to say that the author is racist or homophobic. Absolutely not. I'm just talking about some of the attitudes of some of the characters. And another aspect as well is the book itself is very reminiscent. It really, really brings to life, I think, London as a character, almost as a character in itself. Because the London in this book is, it gives you a real sense of dirtiness, griminess, and that runs throughout the whole book. And I think that was intentional on James Herbert's part, because James Herbert grew up, I think, in the post-war years. He grew up among bomb sites, bombed out areas where, seeing poverty around him, this kind of thing. And I think that shows also in the novel, because there's the first victims of the rats are people who are at the lowest rung of the social ladder, homeless people and so on. And so London itself is described, it comes across as a really dirty, dark, grimy place. And I grew up in 1970s, 1980s London, and I can say that is exactly how London was. So we've got this atmosphere of darkness, grime, dirt, depression, and from this atmosphere comes a horde of rats. And what's special about these rats? There are a couple of things about them. First of all, they're far larger than normal rats. They're described as being the size of small dogs, and all between about 2 feet long from tail to nose. Sorry. So they're big things, very big, and they're also apparently you can see from reading the book that they are also extremely intelligent. They seem to act almost as a hive mind. They when they launch their attacks, they're almost like military attacks. They're very, very precise. And the explanation for this, there is an explanation, but you don't really find out until the climax of the book, when the hero of the novel has a showdown at the end. So the rats start off by attacking people. They start off small. They attack an individual homeless man, then they attack a small group of homeless people. And it has to be said that they will attack anybody. So you have to bear that in mind when you read the book. There's a very, very disturbing scene towards the beginning where they attack a house. And let's just say that James Herbert leaves you in no doubt that nobody is safe. So from starting small, the rats quickly escalate. They begin launching all-out massacres. And of course, this gets the attention of the government, and the government is under extreme pressure to do something about it because, London is, London quickly becomes paralyzed with terror because the rats just pop up here and there. There's no telling where they're going to attack, when they're going to attack. And so this unpredictability makes them, in my opinion, very, 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 very frightening because there's just no way to know when they're going to attack next. And another aspect is that the bite of the rats is fatal. If anyone is so much as bitten once, they will die of a virus in 24 hours. So that only adds to the dangerousness of the situation. Our hero of the story is a man called Harris. He's a school teacher, and he gets sucked into the whole thing when one of his pupils complains of a rat bite on the way. He was bitten by a rat on the way to school, and the boy dies the next day. And so Harris gets, pulled into the situation, and he ends up assisting the government in trying to find a solution to this not inconsiderable problem. So it's a very, 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 very fast read. It's very, very exciting. It's very, very gripping. The characterization, I have to say, is not particularly profound. Harris is a kind of boring kind of everyman type. He's not fleshed out at all. To be fair, I would say none of the characters are particularly fleshed out. The characters are more like, in my opinion, more like vehicles to keep the story going, keep the action going. We're also introduced in most chapters to a new character who comes in at the beginning of the book, just going about their day, and ends at the beginning of the chapter, and ends the chapter by being killed by the rats, basically. That's how it tends to go. So it's a very, as I say, it's a very, very fast-paced book. It's very, very exciting, and it's genuinely gory. It's an old book, so it's quite easy. It might be quite easy for people to think, oh, it's old. It might be dated. It might be boring. I mean, it is dated in some respects. Obviously, in 1974, it was a completely different society from today, and so yes, it is somewhat dated, but not to the extent that it would be tedious or boring for today's reader. In fact, it's quite the reverse. The rats themselves are an absolutely horrific antagonist. I think that also plays to the fact that a lot of people, myself included, are scared of rats or disgusted by rats and don't want to have contact with them at all. And this, having rats as your main villain, you can say, really plays on that kind of revulsion. And as we know, there are cases where rats have attacked people, obviously not to this extent, but it can happen, particularly, I think, in poorer environments. There are cases where rats have attacked babies. So, I mean, that's horrific enough. So I would definitely recommend this book. It's a good read. It's exciting. It's frightening. It's horrific. And at the end of the day, what more can you ask from a horror book? So I hope you will horrify yourselves by reading this book, and I hope I've horrified you. Thank you for watching.